and welcome to episode 13 of Naked Talk with Unprocessed Jess. A very scary Christmas and a crappy New Year. So if you've been listening, you've noticed I haven't put out new episodes in a while, and it's perfect for today's topic because we're talking about holiday blues and how there's just so many expectations put around the holidays and pressure that is put on people around this time of year. And the joy is great, but there's also heightened sadness around this time, especially when you're going through grieving the death of a loved one. I've shared in my story the loss of my brother. We lost him to combat PTSD-induced suicide a couple of years ago, and it's tough. We did our Christmas with my sister-in-law and my niece and nephew, and, you know, it's heartbreaking just seeing my brother's empty chair there in the room and knowing that the hurt that we're all feeling, but especially his son and daughter, is just horrible. So you, especially as a parent, you know, you grieve, but then you have to go on and do these things so our other children can enjoy things. So yes, it's real. We've gone through a lot of things in our family, and we're still working through a lot of them. And so yeah, it's you know, it can be difficult. I always share that all areas of our life are connected and they affect the other. So when something's out of balance, eventually it's going to show up in another area of life. And so I've taken time for myself and my husband and my children, and I'm getting back to everything. I actually found a place here in Houston to record some episodes. So I'm really excited about that and look for some changes coming up in the new year. So let's talk a little bit about that. You hear Christmas songs and you're seeing all the great posts and everyone's supposed to be happy, but you're feeling like you're doing good just to get out of bed. And depending on your situation, it can be really strenuous. Maybe it's, like I said, a loss of a loved one, or maybe it's a toxic relationship and you're telling yourself, really, like, why am I still with him or her? I know this is bad. It's not healthy for me, but for whatever reason, you're staying in that relationship. I've shared about a toxic relationship that I was in. And in my story, I share a little bit about, in episode 1, how I left the father of my older 2 girls, and my oldest was 10 months old at the time. And I was a little bit over a month pregnant with my second daughter, but I didn't know it at the time until probably right after Christmas. And I just remember sitting on the couch and just crying all the time. I was exhausted. I was nursing my baby. She was 10 months old. So you know how that can be with just a little one. And then on the top of that, all the stress of that, and just really being down and feeling pathetic and unloved, and like things were just horrible. So I can relate to people that are not happy around that time. Or maybe it's something like overspending. I've shared on my Instagram TV, on my Unprocessed Jess on Instagram, that maybe you're overspending and you know you can't afford it, but you feel the pressure to give all of these gifts to show love, or maybe it's acceptance, or not to be embarrassed. Another thing to think about are, you know, parties, and if you have children, you know, their school activities, and then their coaches and their teachers and neighbors and coworkers and family and friends and all these things. It just really adds up, and it can put a lot of pressure on you to attend these things and bring a gift. So maybe you're overspending and now you're feeling stressed because you can't afford it. Your debt is getting higher. You thought you would be better off, and you're not. Or like me, I've often done, as I've shared, I've been where I had no money, like literally no money. I left with $50 and a baby and one on the way in a stroller. So I've had no money, and then I've been where I can afford it, but I just know I'm overspending. So for whatever reason, I have to stop and say, okay, why do I feel the need to overspend on this item or for this person and really take a step back. Because if I start to feel anxious or stressed, there's usually a reason behind it. So what I want you to do is really think about what is stressing you out right now. We're down to the wire here where it's Christmas Eve. If you're listening to this later, we're right here before Christmas time. But maybe if you're listening, it might be before another holiday or a big trip that's coming up. It just never ends. There's always something. And think about what's stressing you out right now. If it's not the holidays when you're listening to this, then what is stressing you out in your life right now? And then say, is it something I can control or do differently? If it's not something you can control, how can you look at that situation differently or respond to it in a way that is healthy for you? A lot of times when we're in the thick of something, we really feel those emotions, but then things get better, and we as humans tend to forget how bad things were. I'm definitely guilty of this until the next time it comes around. So if it's something like I'm overspending and I'm stressed, it's Christmas, I'm not taking time for myself, well, January, February, March, April come around, and you think, oh, it wasn't that bad, and until that season comes around again, and now you're in the same situation. So what can you do to change that? If it's a toxic relationship, really ask yourself why you're in that relationship. Have you set healthy boundaries? I've shared about healthy boundaries that I've had to set, and some very, very close family relationships of mine, I've had to decide whether I wanted to enforce those healthy boundaries or not. And I did decide, and that can often come with the consequence of not having that family member in your life for a period of time. And it's difficult, but you're the only one that can say, what are my healthy boundaries to set, and determine that you're worth enough to hold those boundaries and not allow yourself to be hurt. So maybe it's that relationship. Maybe it's a loss of a job, or it's your first year being divorced. Like I said, I remember just being with my baby and sitting in the living room and just crying all the time. I didn't want to do anything, and I just felt so alone. And I saw pictures of other people and their families, and it's not that I was mad at or jealous or anything like that, but it just made me just feel alone. So write those things down. I want to, in next year, do something called the Holiday Hangover Series. And I'm just going to kind of go through steps on these different areas and things that you can do to prevent that. Something I'm passionate about, and I've been talking to some single ladies about, is money, and really just helping especially women learn the concept of money and what that means to them, because no one should have to stay in a relationship or a situation because of money. I left a toxic relationship. I had a college degree. I had a decent job, but I moved in with this person. I quit working when my daughter was born, and then I found myself in a situation that I kept going back to because it was just honestly really hard to leave the relationship and scary. And it's kind of funny looking back now because of my life and everything that I have in a husband and my daughters and health and freedom and flexibility now. But at the time, I was scared to death. You just think it's never going to get better. And if I leave, what if this, what if that? So I don't want anyone to have to stay in a relationship when someone could have taught them about money. And so I'm going to have some people on and be doing things with, people that work with finances and helping, so we can get on track. And maybe that's, again, where our Christmas spending comes into play, right? Knowing what you have, what you can spend, and just simple concepts like, the compounding of money and why we should save. Maybe we need to make saving sexy. That's something we might do. Saving is sexy. And make that be a movement of empowerment. It's fun to spend. I love my things and buying, stuff, but I also love when I can save on something or when I can save money. So be looking forward to that. It's Holiday Hangover. And if you go to my Instagram and my Facebook, I'm under Unprocessed Jess on both of those. But I also have Naked Talk Podcast on Instagram. And you can go to my blog, unprocessedjess.com. I just have several blog posts that I was writing around the time of my brother's death and then that first holiday after it. So it was really raw and new because I was going through it. I think there's one called Celebrating the Holidays While Grieving and Holiday Blues. I'll put a link in the show notes so you can go to nakedtalkpodcast.com. And when you see this episode, you can find the links in there. And I just say how, I was in Kroger and I had gotten off the phone with a very close relative and I just started crying there in Kroger. And I just remember it was busy. It was right before Christmas and people were kind of looking at me. Someone asked if I was okay. And I was like, yes, I'm fine, But yes, it's real. And, I was thinking too, I thought this today, don't get me started on the Christmas cards, okay? So I am one of those who, especially when my girls were young, had the Christmas cards, pay the photographer to come out most of the years, matching Matilda Jane or little custom Christmas outfits. I have a friend who, Just Silly Clothing, she does the best stuff. Y'all can check her out at Just Silly Clothing on social media. She did little custom outfits for the girls. I've done those, but what happens when you're going through something and you can't take those photos because you can't even get everyone in the same place, much less with a smile on their face? So this year we didn't do Christmas cards and I just don't feel guilty about it. I'm just like, nope, I'm kind of stressed. We don't have the best, ideal family situation right now. I'm not going to leave one of the children out, so we didn't do it. And I'm going to do a happy or crappy, we'll see how it goes, New Year card. And hopefully we'll be able to get everyone together in one place. And if so, we'll do that in January. We're also from a blended family. I've shared that before, and our boys are grown. So, we should be able to get them all together. And, we'll see what the other situation. But if not, don't feel bad about it. And even if you have a great family situation, but that stresses you out, guess what? They'll be okay. I love getting cards, actually. And I think if no one sent me a card, I'd probably think, why isn't anyone sending me a card? But you know what? They will understand. Kind of like the gifts, right? If you go to that person and just tell them, look, I'm really stressed. I love you so much, but I'm just not doing gifts this year. Or I'm really taking control of my financial future and I've budgeted X amount, but I just want you to know I don't want any pressure. And if they love you, they'll respect that. And maybe try that. And just be honest. I think if a lot of us just talk about things, we'll find that that's probably a relief for the other person. Or if you say, I just am so stressed. I don't want to go buy stamps and then write everyone's addresses or order cards and I don't mail half of them out. Just be honest. That might just let them off the hook as well. So a few things to leave you with. I was talking to another one of my girlfriends earlier this month. She is recently divorced and has children as well and going through the holidays and all that entails. We were just saying how down she was, but that she knew that her food was affecting her mood. And you've heard me say that it truly does. Our mind, body, soul, all areas of our life are connected. So if you are going through holiday blues or grief, or even if you aren't going through that, but just the stress that holidays this time of year brings on in and of itself, really think about how you're caring for your body. Are you drinking enough water? Are you fitting in your fitness somewhere? if going to the gym just is not, possible, at least get walking in. Your pets, if you have them, will love it, or your kids. Just try to walk more, or choose a neighbor you want to catch up with. And, I've shared before, my neighbor, she's a family attorney, and we could never see each other, so we walk. Sometimes it's 5 a.m, sometimes it's 5:20, but that has really helped our friendship. So fit that in somewhere and keep your digestion up. The stress and the different foods you might not always be eating can really do a number on our digestion. And I try to talk a lot about poop. If you're on my Instagram, Unprocessed Jess, you'll see I do a poop patrol every now and then, and I'll just say, hey, it's 10 a.m., have you pooped today? Or it's 4 p.m., have you pooped today? But it's kind of embarrassing, but it is something that's important, and it's a good indicator that you may have something going on if you're not pooping enough or you're not having the right kind of bowel movement. So take care of your digestion. I share about drinking warm lemon water in the morning to get things going. It massages your organs and sets your digestion up for the day. In my episode, I think it's called Lemon Water and Movement, I share a little tip about that. And there's also Constipation, Are You Full of It episode. And that'll help you a little if you're thinking that, hey, I might not be going as much as I should. You can do digestive enzymes as well, and a really good probiotic. And like I said, just get a lot of water and eat less crap, which is carbonated drinks, refined sugars, artificial sweeteners, and processed foods, and more real food, which is whole foods, meaning, fresh foods, things without a lot of ingredients. And just take care of yourself so you don't have a scary Christmas or a crappy New Year. And I really look forward to growing with y'all this next year. I'm super excited about this studio, and may possibly be bringing video to that as well. So let me know if you have any questions. You can always email me, jess@unprocessedjess.com, or message me on Instagram or Facebook at Naked Talk Podcast and Unprocessed Jess. Let me know what y'all would love to hear about and what episode you've been able to use in your life. And I will talk to y'all soon.